Hey guys, I hope you're having a good night. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about things that stood out to me in the few chapters that we had to read. And before I start, I just want to say that overall, almost every single one of the printable worksheets that is provided in this book are very helpful, especially for me, where I'm not a very organized person. My brain kind of starts organized when I start something new and then kind of loses it all and kind of goes into scramble mode. So this is really helpful read. One thing that stood out to me was planning how you're going to answer personal questions, especially like building those relationships within the students. They're going to ask you questions about yourself, and sometimes it's going to be questions you don't expect and you don't know how to answer. So even preparing for the worst, I think, is useful. And as we've been learning, you have to kind of prepare for everything, even the smallest things like talking about yourself. One thing that I'm really gonna use in my classroom is adopting the we attitude that they talked about a lot in chapter 5. Just using words like we, team, us. I think it really builds class community and kind of just reminds students that we're all in this together, we're all working through it, and that, we kind of have each other's backs. Creating a risk-free environment was something that also stood out to me because I don't know where I read this, maybe in one of our classes, we learned that, at a very young age, we stop asking questions because we're scared of getting it wrong. But creating that risk-free environment will kind of lose that like thought behind everything and asking questions and getting wrong. Instead, if that environment is created, you can kind of have students not be afraid to be wrong or look for help rather than like back away. So I really hope to build that kind of climate into my classroom. I really like the thought of having a trash can board, especially for the younger kids. I mean, even when I was a pre-K teacher, they said a lot of naughty words that they knew were naughty. But kind of having that as a display or saying, oh, let's take that word out of our vocabulary and let's throw it in the trash can, even if it's just like a fake trash can. But I think having a visual and having those words or with the picture on there could be very useful to keeping those relationships and just keeping each other safe verbally. Having a backup plan is something that I never had when I was teaching a pre-K class, and I really wish I did. So moving forward, it's something that I will always plan for. You never know what's going to go wrong. You never know when you're going to have to, go a little overtime or under time, or if something doesn't happen or you don't have the supplies for some reason. You can always go to your backup plan that can help you keep moving in your schedule. I like the idea of having a closing exercise and like a 2-minute pickup session. I did sub a class that kind of did that, where every day they would write down everything that they got done, how they think they did, what they think they might need to work on, how they treated each other. And then at the end of the day, they actually needed to pick up 5 things off of the floor in order to line up, which I thought was really cool too. So that made me think of that little statement that was in the book. I think that often times I think of like, oh, what does it look like to have negative behavior? But in the book, it also talked about determining what success looks like. And I think that that's very important, because if we know what that looks like, then we can praise our students a little more when they are being successful. Building relationships to motivate is also something that I really took from these few chapters. And it said a way to do this was call on every student every day. And I thought, wow, how sometimes that's difficult, like what if there's students who aren't raising their hand, but maybe having like a checklist of every day in the week and kind of checking off every day to make sure that you got to every student, even if it's just like a comment or just kind of helping them participate in some way or using their name in some way, I think could build a relationship as well. There was a list of extrinsic motivations, which I think a lot of us like to use. And one of the biggest things I took away from that was not using food as a reward. And I definitely used to do that a lot with our pre-K class. I kind of learned that from other teachers in the center. At first I was like, that's not going to help, but then I started using it and it was helpful kind of. But then reading the list of things as to why it's not a good choice, it really opened my eyes and made me realize that there are better options. And the options that I liked and that weren't just like, oh, extra free time or here, go and just do what you want or go on your iPad. I really liked the thought of taking a class for a walk, there being like a hall of fame, or featured work, or you can decorate your desk, or a paper airplane contest, especially for the little ones, they would love that. Or having your picture in a newsletter. Those are all things that I will definitely use in the future for my classroom. So yeah, thanks for listening to what I had to say. I look forward to seeing your comments. Have a good night.